everyone. Am I audible? एक. Okay. So, some students were asking me about notes, how to make notes. Some people prefer making notes on computer because they can edit those things later on. Okay. They may even add something which they find relevant while reading newspapers. And that is very convenient to them. But there are many people who, despite knowing how to type, how to save, how to open and close on computer, they prefer writing with the pen on the notebook. Okay. Not that they do not know how to operate computer, but they find it more suitable to them to write like that. Okay. So therefore, there is no one method. Okay, whatever suits you, whatever is convenient to you. Okay, generally it is preferable to make notes on any device like computer so that you could edit those things later, or you may add those. That does not mean that you have to do it. Okay, that is completely according to your convenience. Okay, whatever suits you basically. So therefore I cannot recommend any one method. Now historical materialism. Tomorrow is your off, Saturday. Okay, and hopefully you will utilize tomorrow's day to revise everything so that you could give your test properly, and whosoever is going to secure good range of marks, top 3, okay, we also have reward for them, okay, which is not to be told to you right now. Historical materialism. Now let us finish this historical materialism. Okay, again telling you the same story for quick revision, and then फटाफट से हम जो भी आगे करना है खत्म करते हैं उसको. The first ever, remember this, why historical materialism is important. Okay, when Karl Marx, remember this, when Karl Marx, or for that matter any scholar who are there in your syllabus, whenever they wrote any book, they never wrote any book for any competitive exam. Okay, and therefore they were free to write whatever they wanted to in whatsoever book. Okay, after their death, people arranged those books in chronological order, and then some of the boards decided to lift that portion for an exam like this. Okay, so therefore you would find some of the elements of this historical materialism even in the third concept, that is class struggle. Okay, or even in the mode of production, that is second concept, or even in the alienation, that is fourth. So that is why historical materialism is very important. If you do not understand this, you would not be able to understand rest 3. Okay, now Engels once said on historical materialism, okay, just like Darwin developed the laws of organic development of nature, organic development of human, to be very precise. Not human, let us talk about nature only. Just like Darwin developed the laws of organic laws of nature, similarly, Marx developed the laws of development of history. Okay, how history developed. This is what historical materialism is all about. Okay, so when Marx is telling us about this theory, historical materialism, okay, which is a phrase not coined by him, of course, because he whatever he has written in was in German. So Marx is, through this theory, he is telling us about development of history first, and not just development of history, but when he is talking about how history developed, he somehow is presenting to us his version of what he thought of how history developed, and this version later came to be regarded as materialist interpretation. Okay, materialist interpretation of history. Okay, why materialist? Now you will come to know when I'm done with this. Okay, materialist interpretation of history. Now let us begin. What happened for the first time in the world? Okay, first person. What is he doing? The first historical act in the human society was, of course, production. Production. And why production? Survival is important. Man, in order to survive, has to produce. Produce what? Food, clothes, and shelter. And therefore, the first historical act was production or survival. Okay, this was the first historical act. Now, one thing is for sure, food, clothes, and shelter are not readily available in the open. You have to make these things, you have to make food, okay, by hunting. You have to make shelter by cutting woods. You have to make clothes by cutting leaf from the woods. Okay, so that simply means that since these things are not readily available in the nature, man has to what do I say, transform nature, transform nature into material goods. Okay, and how did the man transform nature into material goods like food, clothes, shelter? Through labor. Cutting the wood involves labor. Hunting the deer involves labor. Cutting leaves involves labor. Okay, this happened. And after this, what happened? The primary needs stand satisfied. खुश है वो अब. These are the primary needs. Roti, kapda, makan. Man is satisfied. Acha. One thing is also for sure. In order to satisfy these needs, he himself never did all these things. He automatically had to cooperate with multiple people. And therefore, it was inevitable to enter into the social relations of production. Okay, so although nature was transformed into material goods through labor, but labor was not an individual labor, it was collective labor, and therefore it was social relations of production to enter into which was inevitable for the man. Okay, And after this, the needs stand satisfied. Okay. Acha. Now, let us not go after this anywhere. Let us just look at this. What is happening here? You will realize this is something, a very beautiful picture is presented by Karl Marx. Very simple, स्वीट सी पिक्चर एकदम उस दुनिया की. ओके, पता नहीं ऐसा था भी या नहीं, पता नहीं. मार्क्स बोलता है ऐसा एक मॉडल था कभी. अच्छा, so what was this model? This model, according to Karl Marx, represented primitive communism. ये क्या है? Primitive communism. Okay. Primitive communism. अच्छा, what is primitive communism? Primitive means old, ancient. Okay. उस जमाने का. Communism means community, gathered, produced, consumed, everything happening in a communal fashion. Communal does not mean Hindu-Muslim conflict. Communal means community gathered together, produced together, ate together, sat together around campfire, danced together. सब कुछ बढ़िया चल रहा है, economic needs fulfill हो रही हैं collectively. This was primitive communism. And when Marx described this stage, up till this stage, as reflecting primitive communism, he is saying that until this stage, there was no inequality. There was no inequality. No inequality. No inequality. Okay. Acha, you can make diagram according to your convenience also, since I have limited space. बड़ा छोटा सा है ये, इतना बड़ा भी नहीं है. जब तुम कभी यहाँ आओगे तुम्हें पता चलेगा बड़ा छोटा सा. So I don't get enough space to articulate what is going on in my head. So I have to limit myself to confined spaces. इसलिए गंदा सा बन जाता है. Anyhow, so in that era there was no inequality. Happy picture of society. And no inequality, that means there was no superior or inferior. That means there was no class, basically. Which simply means it was a classless society. There was no rich or poor. Everybody were equal. Okay. फिर क्या हुआ? जब सब अच्छा था तो what happened later on? How inequality is cropped up? Once the primary needs are met, secondary needs develop. Secondary need develop. Okay. Secondary needs develops. What are secondary needs? Higher than primary. Okay, means better food, better clothes, and better shelter. Something like that. Okay. Need is need, cloth is cloth. But what are better clothes? Some branded. Better food, branded. Better house, some in branded location. Okay. So needs increased. Acha. So what happened? Now instead of deer, they are wanting to hunt lion. To hunt lion is not easy, specifically with those primitive tools which these people had. What were the primitive tools? Primitive communism obviously had primitive tools. Acha, what were the primitive tools in that time? Primitive tools like stone, bow, arrow. Okay. And now these stone, bow, arrow are not sufficient to hunt lion. Lion is a very huge animal and very violent as well, very wild. So we have to develop something else to hunt this increased or this secondary need that we have developed somehow. Okay. अच्छा, so the means of production, remember this. This is means of production only. Stone, bow and all. Now here when the secondary needs develop, what are the means of production? Obviously, a better or advanced form of primitive tools. Okay. And Stone Age is over. Now comes Iron Age. Iron Age. Okay. You have iron tools now. Now, what happened? With the help of advanced tools, we hunted lion. Achha. Achha, who developed these advanced tools? Few people had this idea that we need to develop advanced tools. And those people, they built a trap, iron trap. Cage is iron cage. Okay, just think like that. In this iron cage, they inserted one bait also. Lion got trapped, and then these people ate lion also. Okay, but after a few days, what happened? The means of production increased or developed, which means technological advancement. This is nothing but technological advancement only. Okay. When the technological advancement happened, it resulted into it resulted into change in the relations of production. Technological changes happened and relations of production also changed. Asha, what is the meaning of this line? In this era, in primitive communism, the relations of production was symmetrical. In the sense, there was no inequality. Everybody were equally involved in the production process. There was no superior, no inferior, no rich, no poor, communal relations. Acha, but with the advancement in technology, the relations of production changed, which means now some people are the owners of this advanced technology. Okay. See, secondary needs developed, but only few people could develop higher or advanced form of technology to fulfill their secondary needs. Now, these people who developed the higher form of technology, they were the owner. They became the owner in the sense, next day, those people said, uh, can I take your, this, what do you call it as, this iron cage? I want to go to that forest to hunt lion. And that person saying, rakho usko wahin pe. This is mine. This is mine. Okay. अरे how come it's yours? ये और see अभी कल की ही बात है ये. All of us collectively made this and you're saying now it's yours. It's mine. उसको वहीं रखो, बकवास मत करो, अपना जाके बनाओ अगर इतना आता है तुम्हें. ठीक है भाई, यही बात है. हाँ, यही बात. This is how ownership came. मन मर्जी से. Okay. और देखो, see, उस time we had no laws. Today you are owner of your house. What is the proof? You have paper. In those times there was no paper or state or law, something like that. Okay. मन मर्जी थी, ओनर बन गए. आइडिया मेरा है, मैं ओनर हूं. ओके. ओके. अच्छा. So change in relations of production means we had symmetrical relation and now we had asymmetrical relation. asymmetrical relations. In the sense, some people are owners of the means of production. Other people who are not owners are dependent on these people for the iron cage. Always they would come to those people. Okay. Unless you have iron cage, you cannot trap lion, you cannot fulfill your increased desire. Okay. And you are no longer satisfied with deer or boar. क्या करें? Desire बढ़ गए हैं. ठीक है. So what happened? Means of production changed. The change in means of production led to change in relations of production. Remember this very important line. Okay. And what does means of production reflect? It reflects changes in the technology. So changes in technology ultimately led to change in relations of production. Got it? ठीक. Change in technology led to change in relations of production. Okay. Now I'll ask you one question. Not going beyond this right now, at least for the time being. Just tell me one thing. क्या हो गया? Just tell me one thing. Your needs were primary, and now your needs are secondary. Okay. What is it showing to us? Quantitative change or qualitative change? अभी यहां दिक्कत आएगी. Just think like this. It is quantitative change. Quantitative. Okay. Not qualitative. Don't consider it qualitative. Why? Because till yesterday you were happy with one deer. One deer. Okay. Now you want 3 deers, 4 deers, and then you switch to lion. So when you were not satisfied with one deer, okay, just think like this now. When you go to market, okay, you want to have one plate of momos. Okay, you give 10 rupees, he will give you one plate of momo. After having one plate of momo, एक और लेगा? नहीं तू देख ले लेते हैं ना, हाफ हाफ कर लियो. Quantitative. This is quantitative. Okay, you want to have one more plate of momo. Okay, now every day you had momos. Every day. Now you got bored. यार मोमोज नहीं, आज कुछ और खाते हैं. क्या? पिज्जा देखते हैं, इटालियन थोड़ा. ठीक है चलो. Now this is qualitative change. This is not quantitative. From momos to pizza is a qualitative change. Similarly, from one deer to many deers is quantitative. From many deers to lion is qualitative. Okay. Now tell me. Quantitative changes and then sudden qualitative change. This is first law or not? This is first law. Okay. And Marx is actually showing us how laws are applicable. Okay. What is actually happening in the social world? How those laws are applied theoretically. Okay. Okay. Second, with change in technology, when technology changed, what does it show? Quantitative change or qualitative change? Change in technology. Qualitative, yes, very good. Change in technology ही change हो गई. From stone to iron. This is not quantitative, this is qualitative change. Okay. Acha. So we have two qualitative changes in our mind. Primary to secondary need and then technological. Quantitative to qualitative. Okay, both are quantitative to qualitative. Acha, what was the result of this quantitative change leading to qualitative change. The result was change in the relations of production, right? Now, technology leading to change in relations of production. Relations of production earlier was symmetrical, everybody were equal. Now it is hierarchical, one is superior, second is inferior. Which law is this? Both are important to each other. This owner of the cage needs those people because today this cage may have to be repaired as well. Okay, a new cage may have to be made again. Those people are dependent on this person because this person possesses the cage. They would rent, this person would rent out the cage to these people. जाओ वापस कर देना 1 घंटे में, वेट कर रहा हूँ. Okay, what is this? This is union. It is showing union, right? Second law, first part, union of opposites. अच्छा, conflict कब हुआ? Conflict is, imagine conflict like this. These people asking for the cage every time to that person, and one fine day this person say अपना बना लो अब तुम. Imagine like this. Okay, so union is there, conflict is also there. You know, in fact, union implies conflict. Union implies conflict. Why? Because you are in union because of two opposite needs. Remember this. Remember this. Like for example, marriage. Marriage is not just union, it is conflict as well. The two opposite needs are fulfilled by two opposite people. When two opposites attract, okay, so they repel also because in the first place they were opposites only. तो यूनियन एंड कंफ्लिक्ट तो होना ही है, साथ साथ का रिश्ता है. एक्शन रिएक्शन, फिजन फ्यूजन. ओके, ठीक है. सेकंड वो भी हो गया. इसके बाद क्या होता है? Now what happens is, with technological change, relations of production, with relations of production changing, the mode of production change. Mode of production, remember this word. I'll explain you the meaning of this term also. Okay. फ्लोचार्ट जो है ऐसे ही बनाते जाना, आगे नीचे पता नहीं कहाँ कहाँ तक, यहाँ जाएगा शायद नीचे इधर तक. ठीक है. मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. Mode of production changed. What is the meaning of mode of production? Simple. Simple. Mode of production. The sense, it simply implies how society organizes its needs and satisfies its needs. The mode of production in this era was communism. Communism, in the sense, means of production were communally owned, relations of production were symmetrical. So mode of production is communism because it is community which is sharing, owning, no class is there. So communism is the mode of production because community is there, no one person is owning anything, everybody is equal, no class is there. Okay, acha, but so much changes have happened, so mode of production would now also change. So now from primitive communism we have entered into a new mode where one group is superior because it is owning the means of production, second group is inferior, asymmetry, and therefore mode of production also reflects the change. Mode of production would now be slavery. 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 What is the meaning of slavery? These people who are dependent on my iron cage, I have enslaved them. Okay. I'll keep asking them to make cages for me whenever I want, because if they do not listen to me, I would not give my iron cage to them. They will die hungry. So they have become slave to me. I have enslaved them. Okay, I have become master. No more community hierarchy. No more classless society. We have classes now. One is master. One has become master. All the other people have become slaves. Understood? ठीक है. अच्छा. What happened after this? Now, in slavery, of course, we have two classes, master slaves. Okay. After some point of time, what will happen? New needs, फिर से आ गई. New needs develop. New needs again develop. Now this master, he has gotten bored of lion. One fine day, these people who were the hunters, okay, they went to forest and they were ready to kill lion. Ready to kill lion. Okay, waiting for the lion to come and to please his master. Okay. But suddenly, one of these slaves came across something which was very shiny. Okay. They approached something that was shining like anything. One of them went to that place and he found something very, what we today call as pearls. Okay, diamond, jewelry, something like that. For the first time in forest, those slaves who had went into forest to hunt for the master had come across something that was very shiny. And this slave does not know what to do with this. So they went to forest, they went to master, they told master, we have come across something, this, then master saying, ला इधर दे मेरे को, क्या है? Nice. So master is getting very happy. Okay, he does not know what is it, but what he can figure out is it is very different from something that I have seen in my life so far. Okay. And then one fine day, some people would come to master. Okay. And whenever people would come to master, they would ask master, what is this? This looks very nice. Master saying, looks very nice, na? I got it. Really? How? वो सब छोड़ो. I have lot many of these stones and pearls like this. Then master one day told these people, get me some more stones like this. अच्छा लग रहा है ये. ठीक है, लोग थोड़े impress होते हैं मेरे से, आते हैं मेरे पूछते हैं मेरे बारे में. Okay. So they are saying कि यार ठीक है चलो कर लेंगे ये भी. Otherwise I would not give you iron cage. Okay. Yeah, yes, we will hunt for stones also. So one day they went into forest. Deep mines also in the forest, because one day on the top of the soil they found some stones. They thought in deep portion of the soil we would find more stones like this. So they started mining the soil, and that's how mining came. That's how mining industry. This is what Karl Marx is talking about. How things that we have taken for granted actually got developed in the first place. Okay. So people started mining for precious stones, okay, to please the masters. And this is nothing reflection of secondary needs, new needs. Now the master wants stones, precious stones. He wants spices. He wants something very, he does not want cloth made of leaf. He wants cloth made of silk. Imagine like this, his desires, how those desires are changing, how new needs are developing. And when new needs are developing, what will happen? With the development of new needs, technology would again have to be developed, because one thing is for sure, that these people, if they start mining the soil, it would take them maybe 5 years to reach or to find or to come across something that they are looking for. And therefore, in order to mine the soil faster, they have to develop a technology. Okay. So with the development of needs, again, new technology developed. New needs, new technology. As simple as that. And new technology included what? What did this new technology include? Some, some basic tools. Although, of course, in comparison to what we have, the technology that we have attained, of course, they will always be called as basic. But for that point of time, they were also quite advanced tools. Okay. And remember, your most of the needs are now fulfilled by what? Land. Okay. Land will give you cash crops. Land will give you precious stones. Okay. Land will give you, anything that was not there in the earlier stages. Okay. Land will also give you precious textile. How? For example, indigo, indigo plantation. Remember, indigo was a very precious color, basically royal color, royal blue. We call it royal blue, royal blue. Okay. Till date we call it royal, because very discovery of that blue was the very discovery of that blue actually happened in those age when we had masters and slaves. So that is why royal word is attached to it till date. Okay. With the change in technology, again, what happened? Relations of production changed. Relations of production changed. How changed now? Now these masters were not just masters. These masters had now also become owners of the land. The land now belonged to that master. Okay. And those slaves were now serf to this master. Now, who has become landlord? So basically, Marx is telling us, who are the landlords? They are those people who at one point of time were the masters. Who are the serfs, peasants? They are those people who at one point of time were slaves. Only the relations have changed. The names of relations, basically, the name of classes have changed. The relation of production is very much asymmetrical till date. Okay. So, with new technology, relations of production, okay, changed in the sense, from master slave, we have now entered into feudal lord and serf. Feudal lord and serf. And with this comes new mode of production. New mode of production. What is the name of this new mode of production? Feudalism. 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 What is the meaning of feudalism? In communism, the owner was community. No one person was owner of anything. It was classless society. In ancient civilization, in ancient society, masters were the owners of everything, of all the tools. And remember, okay, something which I'll also explain you later on. For the first time, when slavery got developed, for the first time in human societies, man had become a private property to another man. Imagine slaves. When you are slave, you are a private property to another man who is master. And with development of slavery, ownership of human came into existence for the first time. And when feudalism came, feudalism was nothing but ownership of what? Land. Land, of course. Feudalism means ownership of land. Okay. Along with ownership of land, what did you possess? You also owned serfs. Okay. Serfs were still the owner of the feudal lord. How? I'll explain you. Have you guys read Tebhaga struggle? Tebhaga struggle. दो ही लोगों ने पढ़ा है, तीन ने पढ़ लिया, चौथा को याद आ गया कि पढ़ा है मैंने भी, प्रतिभा को भी याद आ गया, पांच ने पढ़ा है, मतलब बताना तो पड़ेगा ही। सबने पढ़ लिया, ठीक है। What happened in Tebhaga is something which I'll anyhow explain when I'm explaining these mode of production separately, because this is also second part. Okay, but what is the essence of whatever we have learned so far? What is the essence? Now I'm telling you the summary of whatever I have done so far. Technological advancement, leads to changes in the means of production. Okay, changes in means of production leads to changes in relations of production. Third line, changes in both ROP, relations of production, and MOP, means of production, leads to change in the mode of production. Okay, क्विकली तो फटाफट लिख लो अगर नहीं लिखा है तो। Changes in both relations of production and means of production leads to changes in the mode of production. Don't confuse between means and mode. Okay. Mode of production is something I'll explain. अभी तो मेरे को बस क्योंकि somehow this word came, so that is why I had to talk about it briefly, but largely I'll explain when we are done with this historical materialism, and then we come to second part, mode of production. Okay. Acha. What are these three lines reflecting? Which law? Can someone tell me? Very nice. समझ गए? तो मार्क्स डिड नॉट टॉक रैंडमली, पूरे लॉज है उसके पास. अच्छा, now the most important thing. Did you guys not wonder when this master said, this cage belongs to me? You cannot use this cage without my permission. Did you not wonder how come these slaves are simply agreeing to master? Okay, okay. सोचने की बात है. See, if I say that this is my property, you do not have any claim in this. For example, suppose I'm married. Let us assume I'm married and I'm telling my wife, this is my property, you do not have even a single piece of claim in it. Okay. Let us assume I'm highly patriarchal, ये भी कर लेते हैं. Okay. How can my wife simply accept it without any fight? I mean, इतना ब्यूटीफुल तो सिनेरियो नहीं रहता भाई. यूनियन है तो कंफ्लिक्ट भी है. ओके, नाउ कम्स द बिगर क्वेश्चन. एज आई टोल्ड यू, रिमेंबर दिस, with change in technology, ROP changes, sorry, means of production change. With change in MOP, changes ROP, relations of production. With change in ROP comes mode of production. Okay, new form of mode of production. But the fact is, how come these relations of production, let us take masters and slaves, how come master justified superior status over slaves? Here comes what Hegel calls as spirit, world spirit, consciousness. Marx says ideas were now developed to justify superiority of one class over another class. Masters now started developing ideas to justify why you should obey me. Why should I obey you? Have you not read Bible? Idiot. Bible नहीं पढ़ी? नहीं पढ़ी. घर जाके पढ़ो. Read Bible. What is Bible? तुम घर जाओ. Come to me tomorrow. I will show you what is written in Bible. Okay. Now this slave has gone back to his home, and this master, what is he doing? He is consulting priest. Okay. Let us assume he is consulting priest. Let us not even assume that he is consulting any priest. Priest कहाँ से आ गए जब religion ही कुछ नहीं है. Okay. Master would now, what he would do? He would consult all the other masters, and then masters would develop some new ideas. Okay, let us justify his enslavement, his subordination in the name of religion. Okay, if he does not obey us, that means he is committing sin. He will not go to heaven. Okay, then master is saying, चल जाएगा ये काम? चल जाएगा, try करते हैं. With asymmetrical relations. With asymmetrical relations developed new forms of ideas, जिसको कॉन्शियसनेस बोला जाता है हेगल की लैंग्वेज में, to justify the class inequality. To justify the class inequality. Okay. And that is how religion as one form of consciousness developed. law as a form of consciousness developed, again to justify class inequality. Okay, class inequality means, it simply means to justify why I should be the owner and you should listen to me, and what I'm saying is right and you are wrong. To justify these things, you had to back yourself up with something that can testify your statement. Okay, and what was that? It was religion, it was law, and not just that, it was also the concept of family. Okay, how come? I'll explain these things. But let us first talk about religion. If you remember Hegel, what did he say? Ideas come first or matter comes first? Hegel said ideas come first. What is Marx trying to argue? Marx is saying ideas are the result of material needs. Right or wrong? Just proved it. Okay. Ideas are result of material needs. Matter is primary to justify your claim over the matter. Okay, now you understand the meaning of matter. अभी भी नहीं समझ आएगा लेकिन कॉन्टेक्चुअल है. जब तक मैं एकदम क्लैरिफाई नहीं करता तब तक वो कॉन्टेक्चुअल चलेगा. एथनोमेथोडोलॉजी, इंडेक्सिकलिटी. ओके, anyhow, so let me show you how religion is used to justify slavery. How Christian slaveholders use the Bible to justify slavery. Let us read Bible. Bible says, okay, Bible says, and you know, as I told you, facts do not speak for themselves. Okay, you need someone to interpret the facts. How these verses were interpreted to justify slavery is something that I'm going to tell you. Bible reads, and the sons of Noah that went forth from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole world overspread. And Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted vineyard, and he drank of the wine, and was drunken. And he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward. And they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. The idea is basically the people who are shown as the drunken. Okay, if you read this Bible, this passage, you will get to realize how slavery was justified, because the people who were drunken were not accepted. Okay, and the people, like for example, here it is written, Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted vineyard, and he drank of the wine, and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. Who is this slave? Okay, and what is happening to this slave? God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God ने बोल दिया है, Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. Okay. Now, What was so terrible about seeing Noah drunk? Why curse Canaan rather than Ham? How long was the servitude to last? Surely Ham would have been the same color as his brothers. Basically, बहुत काफी लंबा है ये. Unless you are interested in studying these things, okay. But this is just one of the point to show how Christianity justified slavery. Let me talk about laws of Manu Smriti. Okay, see how does Manu looks at this. Yeah. Yes. The Manusmriti extols both caste and class hierarchies, which in turn reinforce each other. It prescribes stringent punishments for transgressing the boundaries of birth based professions, which, if allowed, will have terrible consequences. Chapter 8, Shlok 21-22 say, when a Shudra interprets the law for a king, his realm sinks like cow in mud. The entire realm, stricken with famine and pestilence, quickly perishes when it is teeming with Shudras overrun by infidels and devoid of twice born people. Chapter 8, Shlok 410 says, a king should make Shudras engage in the service of twice born people. And Shlok 413, 414 says, the Shudra was created by the self created one solely to do slave labor for the Brahmin. Even when he is released by his master, a Shudra is not freed from his slave status, for that is innate in him, and who can remove it from him? Nobody. ठीक है. How Hinduism justified slavery, Shudra. How Christianity justified slavery. Okay. Acha. How laws justify slavery. Attempts to justify slavery. BBC का है ये. Okay. ओके अगर इंटरेस्ट होगा तो ही पढ़ना. मैं सिर्फ ये बता रहा हूँ कि कैसे ये सब हुआ है. ओके अनफॉर्चुनेटली इन सब चीज़ों का टाइम होता नहीं है तो इसलिए एक्सप्लेन पूरा नहीं हो पाता है. इंटरेस्ट होगा तो पढ़ लेना. स्लेवरी इज लीगल. Slavery at one point of time, today we call it as pathological social fact, but at one point of time it was normal social fact. Legal. Okay, legal. There is no argument at all. Things can be legal and unethical at the same time, but it was legal. Laws were developed, religion was developed, things were written down to justify that person's status, class position. Okay. Now, make this diagram. Is it visible to all of you, this diagram? बनाओ जल्दी से. What is this diagram representing? The diagram is representing. Do you know what is this? Does it not look like? अच्छा पहले बना लो. Now, I hope you have made it now. What is this diagram? If I look at this diagram from the top, okay, I am Karl Marx interpreting history. From the top, I have analyzed societies, evolution of societies, evolution of material conditions leading to new relations of production, okay, new mode of production, and somehow I have come up with this diagram. Now, this is not just a diagram, it is but a motor of history. ये मोटर चल रही है, मोटर टुक 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 ऐसे चलती है ना मोटर, ये मोटर है. This is the motor of history. Okay. Yes. हाँ, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. वो larger picture है basically. If you go deep into thesis, antithesis, तो फिर हम और बातें करते हैं जैसे अभी तक हमने करी. Okay, thesis, antithesis एक वो surface का जैसे होता है एक representation. ठीक है. Now see, did you not find with the evolution of, with the development of higher needs, you are developing new technologies to meet those needs. With the new technologies, new relations of production are developing. With the new relations of production, new mode of production is coming to existence. What does it mean? Every mode of production has some internal economic contradictions. Every mode of production has some internal economic contradictions. This is mode of production. Okay, and economic contradictions, what is which is that law which talks about contradictions in economy exposed by higher needs or unfulfillment of the previous needs, and then comes the next system, that is third law. Okay, then human history develops towards new mode of production and new economic system and social relations come into existence, from ancient to feudal. Now this is feudal. In feudal, what will happen? Again contradictions will happen. New economic system will again come forward, and then we will have capitalism. Capitalism push for social economic changes. Yes, it happens, relations of production change. Why? Means of production change, relations of production change, results in new economic system again. So this is nothing but a motor, and an ever moving motor does not stop. And with this, Marx established the law of development of the human history. Okay, so what did we learn overall? Overall, the conclusion is history is not the manifestation of spirit. History is the product of humanity and the material needs of humanity. Okay, and with the ever increasing needs, the form of consciousness also develop to justify the relations of production over those needs. Okay, and here comes the mode of production, and this is something that will never stop. And therefore Karl Marx says history of all society hitherto has been history of class struggle between master slaves and then lords and serfs, and then comes the capitalism where we are today. Are we in capitalism or we have progressed? Something which we will explore. Okay, but let us assume we are in so-called Marxian capitalism only, something that he was describing during the Industrial Revolution. Let us assume there has been no change since Industrial Revolution. We are still in the Industrial Revolution era only. And therefore, there are only two classes, bourgeoisie and proletariat. Proletariats are the working class, like me. I am working class. I belong to proletarian. Okay, you guys belong to proletarian. Who is the bourgeoisie? The owner of Level Up IS, the owner of Vajiram, the owner of Shriram, the owner of Gangaram. Okay, these are the bourgeoisie. The owner of Haldiram. सारे राम ही है यहाँ पर होल ट्राइसन नगर में. Okay, these are the owners of the means of production, the industrialist class. People working in Haldiram, Gangaram, Vajiram, Shriram, these are working class people, dependent on the owners for survival. And therefore, and just like any other mode of production, this mode of production, capitalism, will also have conflict between these two classes. Do we have conflict? In the sense, is Marx trying to say that I will fight with my director? Maybe. Acha, maybe yes, I may fight with my director, but what is stopping me to fight? What is stopping me to fight? Can someone tell me? Livelihood compulsion or job security? Lack of it. Yeah, of course, these things are there, but one more thing. Family. My family. The problem is, I belong to a family. I have family. And therefore, I cannot take any decision independently. If I decide to fight with my director, my family will come to know about it. Family will say, तुम्हें तमीज नहीं है अपने सीनियर से बात करने की. डायरेक्टर है वो तुम्हारा. Okay, he has been feeding you, he has been giving you income, he has given you job, and this is what you are doing to him. Shame on you. This is what we have taught to you. These are the values that we have given to you. This is why we have sent you to school. This is why we got you educated in these colleges. You are bringing shame to my family. अच्छा ठीक है, नहीं यार मैं नहीं लड़ूंगा यार, नहीं लड़ूंगा. I will not fight. I will go back and say sorry. हाँ sorry बोलो. And when Diwali comes, give him gift also. Okay. ठीक है मम्मी. Family is one system, is one idea which prevents revolution. Okay. It is a form of consciousness. Family is a consciousness. Form of family, you cannot see family, bhai. It is a form of consciousness only. Okay, you can see your mother. Okay, you cannot see family. You can see house where you live in. You cannot see family. Family is consciousness. You think, she's my mother, how can I talk to her? That is consciousness. And this consciousness is not letting you think independently. ये होता है. Talk to the people who are working professionals. Some of them are in this class also. Why they are working? Why they are working? Material needs. अरे they do not have material needs. They have enough पैसा, सब कुछ है उनके पास already. Family. अरे what would my you know, that a friend of my family, father would tell him, compulsion. My father is getting retirement, you know, I have to work. My father is getting retirement, I have to work. Acha, your work is the result of your father getting retirement. Okay. अच्छा नहीं बट माई यू नो पीपल वुड से यार क्या कर रहे हो तुम तब से जॉब ही नहीं कर रहे हो पढ़ी जा रहे हो these are the forms of consciousness which will not lever which will never let you think independently okay media 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 is also a form of consciousness which will never ever let you think of bringing revolution against level up director why suppose I had a fight with my director okay what will I do I got fed up what will I do I'll open YouTube okay watch some lessons from Sadhguru let us assume okay or I'll watch some good music a music that would please my ears and would pacify my anger against this director or I may even watch a movie when I listen to music when I watch movie all the anger that I had is over and this is what critical theorists told us that is why they are called as neo Marxists. This is cultural industry okay cultural industry works works to subdue the consciousness it works only and only to standardize the thinking process it works only and only to create false desires and to make you passive robots chasing the false desires and false needs this is what critical theory says and this will prevent revolution all these are forms of consciousness which have been established only and only to support the economic base of society. What we have learned is basically nothing. Economy is the engine. Family, law, religion, nation. Nation is also a form of consciousness. These things, in the language of Karl Marx, is what forms of consciousness. And the forms of consciousness, since they are located or situated on top of economy, which is the engine of society, something that I've shown you, historical materialism. Historical material, all that diagram, what that diagram which I showed to you just before this was nothing. That diagram was this only. It was in the economy, in the realm of economy that those changes were happening. And these ideas were cropping up to justify what is there in the economy. And therefore, this is nothing but a superstructure. And this is the infrastructure. And therefore, superstructure justifies the inequalities present in the infrastructure. Khatam. This was historical material. Write down in conclusion. In conclusion, the theory of historical materialism. In conclusion, the theory of historical materialism reflects reflects how societies develop, how societies develop class characters, how societies develop class character or social classes, how societies develop social classes, and how the relations of production and how relations of production between these classes and how relations of production between these classes are justified by the forms of consciousness, are justified by the forms of consciousness, that is superstructure. That is superstructure. Okay. Hegel. Hegel. Frederick Hegel. Frederick Hegel. What did he say? Frederick Hegel told us, with my theory of dialectical idealism, we will descend from heaven to earth. With Marx's theory of historical materialism, we shall now ascend from earth to heaven. Because matter is primary, ideas are secondary. Okay. So this was all about historical materialism. Now next is mode of production. We will criticize Marx later on. It's not very easy to criticize Karl Marx. जान निकल जाती है अच्छे अच्छों की. Okay, we can never, in fact, obviously we can, but not an easy task. You know, and the basically you may love Marx, you may hate Marx, but it is just like that. You cannot ignore Marx. The problem is today any academician, whether he is an economist, a sociologist, a psychologist, a political scientist, a philosopher, the whole humanities is divided today. Left wing, right wing. This is how humanities are divided, left wing, right wing. And where did this division come from? Marxism. Today your position in academics is the product of the opposition or the support that you subscribe to Marxism. Either you are Marxist or you are not. That means your identity is somehow related to Marx. Either you are Marxist or you are not. Okay. So even if you're not Marxist, that means your identity still is very much a product of what people have agreed to believe as part of being a Marxist. Okay. Aishwarya Sanap. Sir, can we call infrastructure base? हाँ तो वो तो base तो है ही. Base तो simply English का word है base. Infrastructure is the word used by Marx. Okay. Base तो obviously है ही, वो तो base ही है, उसके ऊपर खड़ा है. Okay. As in superstructure and base. ये नहीं base मत बोलो. Super. If you are using the word superstructure, use infrastructure. Don't use economic base. Economic base is used in general language. Of course it is right, but technically not sound. Karunesh, provided some people only own dreams of just because society was equal, just because of their specific quality. Very nice question, Karunesh. Why some people could own the means of production, why some others could not? You know, the problem is that it is inevitable. Just think like this: day after tomorrow, all of you are going to write the same test. Still, some of you will be rank 1, 2, others will not be. The rank 1, 2, 3. People will say, sir, please uski copy dikha do. Okay, please, please, please. Okay. Or you may even take his help. How come it happened? How are you structured? Just structuring your answer. Please help me, help me. Somehow, when you are taking his help, you have become subject to whatever he or she is going to tell you. And this is how hierarchy develops. And this hierarchy would be legitimized in the form of rank list here. A level up would support the hierarchy. ओके सो ये तो भाई इनएविटेबल है, इसको तुम कहां तक बचोगे इस चीज से? बिल्कुल आदर्श, करुणेश को बता रहे हो टैलेंट भी है कुछ, बिल्कुल सही बात है, टैलेंट भी होता है. ओके एंड इन फैक्ट one day I will also talk about elites. Some people are born elites. Okay, that is elite theory by Pareto, Wilfred Pareto. अच्छा चलो एक काम करते हैं, लेट अस टेक स्मॉल सा ब्रेक, 5 minutes ब्रेक, एंड देन विल कम बैक, क्योंकि अब ज्यादा कुछ बचा है नहीं. ओके, now everything is very easy because now you know the core theory of Marx, historical materialism. Now everything would become very easy for me to explain. Okay, चलो 5 minutes break. नूतन चौरसिया मीन्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन, हाँ अब पता चल जाएगा सब. फोर्सेज ऑफ प्रोडक्शन, नो हाँ हाँ, वेरी नाइस क्वेश्चन, वेरी नाइस क्वेश्चन. अभी पता चल जाएगा मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन में, एवरीथिंग यू विल गेट टू नो. ओके, what is mode of production? First let us try to understand the meaning of mode of production. Everything is happening in the motor. The name of motor is mode of production. That is the motor of history. Okay, the motor of history. This motor of history is rotating. Rotate होते जा रहा है. History is evolving with the rotation of motor, and the rotation of motor involves conflict between classes. Just a second. Am I audible to all of you? ठीक है. This motor involves conflict between classes. New mode of production develops, new classes comes with the new needs and new technology, and this is how the motor is evolving. Okay, so and the motor is situated in the base. For example, the motor of your car is at a place where you do not sit on, or okay, that is somewhere at a very corner of the engine of your car होगा motor, जो engine है that is motor basically. Okay, but you are concerned mainly with steering wheel, brakes and clutches, or gears, or your seat, or luxury furniture, music player in the car. मोटर हम कहाँ देखते हैं, कभी 10 साल में एक बार देख ली. ओके, सो मोटर तो ऐसी ही होती है. दिस इज मोटर ऑफ हिस्ट्री, मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. ओके, the infrastructure. Obviously, infrastructure means the motor, the base. This mode of production consists of, just like any engine consists of multiple nuts, oil, lubricants, so many things are there, okay, which is running the motor. The mode of production is run by two wires. Okay, there are two wires in mode of production. The name of first wire, yellow colored wire, is means of production. The name of second wire is relations of production. These are two wires in the motor. One is means of production, second is relations of production. Okay, now just imagine this picture in your head, and now let us start with the definition. Mode of production is defined as the way societies organize let me write society, not the way society organizes itself to meet the needs. Simple. Okay, it is nothing but the way society organizes itself to meet the needs. किसकी needs? हम सब लोगों की needs, the needs of population. Okay, capitalism is a mode of production which has organized itself to meet our needs. Okay, our needs, are they really our needs? Okay, इसमें भी सवाल आएगा आगे जाकर. iPhone is your need. Is it your need, or has it been manufactured as your need? Okay, अभी हम किस एरा में हैं वो बड़ा अलग है. Okay, anyhow, capitalism is a way society organizes itself to meet the needs. Socialism is a way society organizes itself to meet the needs. Feudalism is a way society organizes itself to meet the needs. Primitive communism was also a way society organized itself to meet the needs. Whatever we saw was nothing but organization, how societies organize themselves to meet the needs. यही तो लिखा. इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर से रिलेटेड क्या बताया मैंने? मीन्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन एंड रिलेशंस ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. Means of production and relations of production. Okay, now I have defined this. Let us now define this wire. What is the meaning of this wire? Means of production. Next word, means of production. Means of production are consisting of the technology. Means of production consist of technology, land, capital. I'll tell you the meaning of capital also. Okay. Basically, land is also capital, but still. Okay. Technology, land, capital, comma, machine, comma, human labor. Okay. Bracket. In the bracket, after human labor, you can write skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled. Okay. So-called talented or untalented, skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled. That is also means of production. Okay, so these are means of production. What is the meaning? Therefore, the meaning of means of production? Means of production are the tools required to fulfill the needs. भाई यू वांट नाइकी का शूज, कहां से आएगा? वो ऊपर से तो आएगा नहीं. टू मैन्युफैक्चर दैट नाइकी का लेब्रॉन और जॉर्डन, ओके, you have to have skilled laborers, okay, and you have to have that technological expertise, okay, you have to have that machine assembly line, तब जाके तो जॉर्डन लेब्रॉन निकलेगा. ओके, अच्छा, नाउ what is relations of production? The second wire. Relations of production are relationship between the classes involved in the production process. Relationship between the classes involved in the production process. Simple. ठीक है भाई. What was the relations of production in communism? Communism is what? Mode of production. What was the relations of production in the mode of production called as communism? The relations of production were symmetrical. The relation between classes was not unequal because there was no class. In primitive communism, there was no class, it was classless society. So the relations of production were symmetrical. Our needs increased. To gratify our needs, technology increased. In relation to change in technology, means of production reflects nothing but change in technology, and then relations of production changed. Then came classes. So relations of production are changing every time with the evolution of history. Okay. Next line in relations of production. The relationship between classes. The relationship between the classes are the product of their relationship to the means of production. Relations of production reflect the relation of classes to the means of production. What is the meaning of this line? Some class are owners of the means of production, and some class is not the owner. And this is how the relationship between the classes are defined in relation to the means of production. समझ गए? चलो बढ़िया. Okay, so देखो, see, this is the first layer that has gone into your mind. Okay, first layer of knowledge. New things, okay, new words. बार बार जब सुनते रहोगे एकदम एक पॉइंट के बाद 10 दिन बाद नॉर्मल, अरे रिलेशन ऑफ प्रोडक्शन नहीं होता, मीन्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. ओके, तो ऑर्गेनिकली ऐसे ही चलता रहेगा. ओके, सो डू नॉट नीड टू गेट वरीड व्हेन यू कम अक्रॉस न्यू वर्ड्स. ओके, ये तो छोटी मोटी चीजें, इन सबसे नहीं घबराना है. अच्छा, देयर इज वन मोर वर्ड, forces of production. Now, what is this forces of production? See, remember, the reason why Marx was one, but Marxists are billions, is because there is no one interpretation of Marx. Okay, many people have interpreted Karl Marx according to their ideologies and according to their social location, according to their education, whatever. Okay, when author dies, then comes interpretation. Okay, Marxism इसी तरह spread होते जाता है. So when you start interpreting someone, in the interpretation you develop words also. Force of production is a result of interpretation of the original writings of Karl Marx. Karl Marx in the original writing never has described anything like force of production. In the original writings, of course, original writings are German, but when they are translated into English, some people call them as means, some people call them as force. But means are nothing but force of production. Okay. So ये literature का difference है सिर्फ. ऑक्सफोर्ड का पढ़ रहे हो, कैम्ब्रिज का पढ़ रहे हो. जस्ट लाइक वी हैव ऑलवेज डिफरेंस इन प्रोनाउंसिएशन ओवर सम वर्ड्स, वेदर यू आर फॉलोइंग अमेरिकन इंग्लिश और ब्रिटिश इंग्लिश. तो ये वैसा कॉन्सेप्ट है कुछ. ओके, तो फोर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन, रिलेशन ऑफ प्रोडक्शन आर नॉट डिफरेंट. यू विल नेवर फाइंड एनीवन टेलिंग यू दैट दीज आर डिफरेंट. ओके, हो सकता है कुछ लोग ऐसा बोलते हैं फोर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन इज इक्वल टू टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस ह्यूमन लेबर. ओके, तो मीन्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन में भी तो आता है वो, कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है that way. Okay, human labor is means of production also. Okay. Okay. We have defined three things: mode of production, relation of production, means of production. Okay, now let us talk about how this engine runs. Engine runs like this. Okay, these are engines. Okay. It is the same engine only which has completed one cycle. After this, one more cycle, then engine is this. One more cycle, this is the new engine. Engine is same, only cycles are being completed. So in this we have primitive communism. Okay, the mode of production was primitive communism. One cycle completed, new needs developed, new technology developed, relations of production changed with respect to change in technology or means of production. Okay, and then comes the new mode of production. That is feudalism. Okay, same cycle repeats. Mode of production is now, sorry, not feudalism, ancient society. Ancient society. Next is feudalism. Next is capitalism. Okay, and remember, when Marx died, year 1883, okay, what was the scenario at that point of time? Did we have socialism the way Marx envisaged socialism to be? We did not have that socialism. Okay, and he believed that we are living in this era of capitalism. And just like any other previous mode of production which have collapsed due to inherent contradictions. Okay, it was only because of inherent contradictions in those mode of production that those mode of production collapsed. And capitalism will sow the seeds of its own destruction, just like the previous modes of production have sown the seeds of their own destruction. Okay, so capitalism is destined to be collapsed. Okay, it is doomed to collapse, just like previous modes of production. And then from the ruins of capitalism, from the ashes of capitalism, will rise socialism, the new mode of production It is futuristic. It is futuristic. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw one line here. Till capitalism was nothing but historical materialism. But after capitalism is not historical materialism. After capitalism is prophecy. Karl Marx has become prophet, God, telling to the world socialism is inevitable. Communism is inevitable. अच्छा, what is communism? कुछ लोग को इसमें भी confusion होता है. Remember, socialism is not equal to communism. These are two different things. Okay, specifically to Karl Marx, these are very two different things. Communism is the last stage, the end of history. And that is not just a communism, that is pure communism. This was primitive, and today next one would be the pure. Okay, history repeats itself, first as tragedy, second as farce. ये बोलता है कार्ल मार्क्स. कम्युनिज्म आएगा फिर से. ओके, प्योर कम्युनिज्म. अच्छा, what is socialism? Now you guys know, you have a brief understanding of these things: primitive communism, ancient society, feudalism, capitalism. Acha, there is one more mode of production. Do not ever write that mode of production along with these four beautiful modes of production. Okay, that ugly mode of production is Asiatic. Asiatic mode of production. Why I am saying never refer this ugly mode of production is because there is not enough literature available on it. Okay, and Marx himself never wrote extensively on Asiatic mode of production. The problem is with the Indian people. Okay, the problem is with the Asians. When Marx described Asiatic mode of production, he was writing about India, China. Okay, and the Indians got fascinated by Karl Marx writings on India. So they started exploring Asiatic mode of production में क्या है, but ज़्यादा कुछ मिलेगा नहीं. Why? The problem is Marx never visited India. Marx did not have a real idea of India. He had a very, what would I say, an Oriental vision of India. Okay, a very European vision of India. And to him, India was all about village. We were village only. Okay, and self-sufficient villages. We were self-sufficient villages. जरूरत ही नहीं है, नीड्स हमारी है ही नहीं. गांधी बोलता है लिमिट टू नीड्स. नीड्स हमारी है ही नहीं. नीड्स जब बढ़ेगी नहीं तो टेक्नोलॉजी कहाँ से बढ़ेगी? ओके, जब टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं बढ़ेगी तो फिर मीन्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन बदलेंगे नहीं, रिलेशंस ऑफ प्रोडक्शन बदलेंगे नहीं, क्लासेस आएंगे नहीं. तो वी टू आर सेल्फ सफिशिएंट. ओके, वो तो कॉलोनियलिज्म आया, वो तो ब्रिटिशर्स आए, आवर नीड्स इंक्रीज एंड देन वी जम्प्ड टू कैपिटलिज्म. ओके, कुछ ऐसा सा. बट ये पढ़ना मत इसको कभी गलती से भी, बहुत बोरिंग है. Anyhow, I'll explain this to you when we'll deal with paper 2. Okay, हमको बस ये चार रखने, ये these four are the most important: primitive, ancient, feudal, capital, then socialism, and then pure communism. Okay, now what is the crux of this cycle? Write down one line. All the modes of production developed as a result of inherent contradictions in the previous modes of production, developed as a result of inherent contradiction in the previous modes of production. which was which which were in fact, क्योंकि contradictions लिखा है तो which were the result of contradiction between relations of production and means of production. Contradiction between relations of production and means of production. Okay. Basically, Marx is telling us that in all the modes of production, we had thesis, antithesis, then synthesis. Okay, this is synthesis, which is now a new thesis. Again, antithesis will develop due to inherent contradictions in ancient society. And then the new synthesis would be feudalism. Okay, and therefore, what is feudalism? Feudalism is negation of negation, third law. Okay, and therefore, I told you in dialectics also, that chart between Hegel and Marx, I told you dialectics between modes of production. So feudalism could not have developed had there not been any dialectics between these two modes of production. Okay, or if there was no dialectic between relations of production and means of production in this mode of production, or if there was no dialectic between masters and slaves. So basically, three forms of dialectics are going on. बड़ा खतरनाक complex engine है ये. Okay, three forms of dialectics are going on, and then is coming the new mode of production. Okay, now I'll explain you these modes of production separately. I'll take one lecture on this also. Okay, but let us understand what is socialism for the time being, and what is capitalism and what is feudalism. Write down on feudalism. Feudalism, heading, feudalism. Feudalism is a mode of production. Feudalism is a mode of production characterized by land as a means of production. Characterized by land as the primary means of production. Characterized by land as the primary means of production. In relation to which we have two social classes. Landlords and serfs. SERFs, serfs or peasants. Okay, landlords and peasants or serfs. Landlords are the owners of the land. Serfs do not own the land. Serfs only work on the land. Okay. Achha. Now, do you remember French Revolution? Everything has happened from there only. French Revolution. If you remember French Revolution, I told you, we had a state system. Okay. And king was, or if I were to talk about first estate constituted approximately how much of population? First estate was hardly 2% of the population, something like that. Okay. This 2% of population had how much of control over land? 20, 10. क्या है ये? 20 और 10 क्या है? अलग अलग क्यों लिख रहे हो? 30 and 25. 20% land controlled by 2% people. Second state. How much of the population we had in second state? 5%. 4 or 5%, क्या ही फर्क पड़ता है, इतना ही था approximately. Okay, so you should realize that states, the 3 states that we had disproportionate control over land according to the population. The majority was in the third state. Okay, approximately more than 90%, and those 90% people were landless. Largely, very few percent of land was there, and that land was also amongst the elites of the third state. Largely, most of them were peasants or landless laborers. Okay, they did not possess any control over land. Remember? So that shows that king was the owner of the land, ceremonial owner. If not the real owner, at least he was the ceremonial owner, symbolic owner of the land. And you know this one thing very well, that 1% king all by himself cannot manage so much of land that he has. So what will happen if king all alone cannot manage his land all by himself? What will he do? He will ask the landlords, the warrior class, the second state people, the nobility, to manage land on his behalf. So landlords, this is how landlord develops. So these are lords, earls, dukes, who now have land of king. Why? Because king cannot manage all the land by himself. So that is why these people are managing land on behalf of king. Acha, what happens next? This is also very clear that these people need workers to work on the land. These landlords need workers to work on the land, because they themselves are not going to till the soil and harvest or so. Okay, utna time nahi hai unke paas. So they will employ serfs. Okay, they will employ peasants from the third state to work on this land given to these second state people by the first state. Okay, and this is how relations of production evolve. Okay, relations of production evolve. Means of production is land. The classes are landlords and serfs. Okay, landlords exercise their full power over serfs. Remember this. Achha, are the serfs owner of the land? No way. Serfs are only there to produce the crop from the land. Okay. Achha, what will happen after the production of the crops? After production of the crops, maximum share of the crop will be usurped by or appropriated by landlords and shall be given to kings, because land belongs to king. Certain share of that produce will be kept in the pocket of landlord. Certain share tukda will be given to serf. Mehnat kariye jao, look. And larger share will be given to the king, because land belongs to king. Okay. King will get impressed by the services of landlords. Okay. King will be very happy. You are managing the land very nicely. Okay. And landlords are also very happy with the kings, because kings reposed faith in landlords. So what is landlord doing for the kings? King has given his land to them. Landlords are giving the king their services. Their services. Services, which kind of services? अरे कभी लड़ाई होगी तो लड़ेंगे किंग के लिए. They will fight for the king. This is also one form of service. Okay. That means the mutual needs of each other are maintaining or are establishing relations of production. Okay. Think like this. Now we are analyzing state system through Marxism. Okay, through Marxism. वो अभी तक हमने किया नहीं था, बट अब करेंगे क्योंकि अब हम मार्क्स पढ़ रहे हैं. अच्छा, see now if you remember Tebhaga struggle. Tebhaga struggle. What is Tebhaga struggle? This Tebhaga struggle means Tebhaga. Let me write it down. I am talking about feudalism only. Okay. What is Tebhaga? Tebhaga struggle. Not just Tebhaga. In fact, you can talk about any peasant struggle in India. There have been so many peasant movements ही तो थी उस टाइम और क्या था? Working class movements कहाँ थी इतनी? See, we had Indigo Revolt. Okay. We had Mopla Rebellion. We had Deccan Revolt. ये सब क्या है? सब peasant movements ही हैं. All these are peasant movements. Okay. And who are these peasants? If, for example, if I were to talk about Tebhaga struggle, what is happening in Tebhaga struggle? You know, in Bengal, what was happening? Tebhaga means 2/3. In English, Tebhaga means 2/3. 2/3. The farmers were sowing their crops. Which crops? Whatever crop the landlords told them to produce. Just like in Champaran, those people were producing indigo because they were instructed to produce indigo by the British people. Okay, so you were not producing out of your will. You were producing because someone had told you to produce this thing only. Okay, and this shows that the production process has become external to you now. Now you are not able to produce what you want. This is something which happened even in the slavery society as well. Slaves were producing only what masters were telling them. Slaves were not able to produce anything out of their own will. Okay, slaves were the private property to the masters. Now similar conditions happen in the Champaran also. They were producing indigo because they were told to do so. Okay, in Tebhaga, the same thing is happening. Whatever they are producing, out of that whole produce, 2/3 is being given to the landlords. 2/3 of the share of the produce is given to landlords. And these are those people who said 2/3 is a lot. We will give you only 1/3. Okay, we will give you only 1/3 because 2/3 is a lot. We would not have any means available at our behest to satisfy our needs. So that is why 2/3 is a lot. And since 2/3 is a lot, so we will protest against you. So this is why it was called as Tebhaga struggle. Acha, who were the leaders of this protest? This protest was led by Kisan Sabha. Kisan Sabha. What is Kisan Sabha? In English, you can say it as, because see, there is no English version of it because it is what the name is. Okay, Kisan Sabha is like farmers organization, something like that, or peasant organization. It was a branch of Communist Party of India. Okay, Kisan Sabha was a branch, a pressure group, so to say, pressure group of the Communist Party of India. Okay, and the communists are those people who always fight for the oppressed. Okay, the Communist Party of India was leading the Tebhaga struggle against the landlords. This shows nothing but class struggle. History, hitherto, has been nothing but history of class struggle. What is happening in Tebhaga struggle? You would never read Tebhaga struggle like, class struggle between peasants and landlords. But what is happening is nothing but the same thing only. Peasants are saying, we are not going to share 2/3 with you, only 1/3. Landlords do not agreeing with it. And then comes the struggle between these two people. That is why Tebhaga struggle. They bhaga. Struggle is nothing, class struggle only. Okay, between landlords and serfs. What is happening in Indigo Revolt, Champaran Satyagraha? Both of them are although two different events also. One is Indigo Revolt, Champaran, but चीज वही चल रही है. That is also nothing but class struggle. मोपला रिबेलियन, क्लास स्ट्रगल. डिफरेंस हिंदू और मुस्लिम का ही है और कुछ नहीं है, तो क्लासेस ही, जमींदार एंड पेजेंट्स. ओके, है तो क्लासेस. मेन तो इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रगल है. इट वाज नॉट जस्ट हिंदू मुस्लिम. ओके, ऑफ कोर्स इट इज. ओके, बट आई विल कम टू दोस थिंग्स लेटर ऑन. ओके, हाउ रिलीजन as superstructure institution legitimize inequalities. So being a Muslim, somehow, since they were living in the so-called the Hindu society, so it was legitimized. The oppression was legitimized. Okay, how exactly I will tell you later on. Okay, जब हम उन details में जाएंगे. So this was all about feudalism. अच्छा, how did feudalism collapse? Inherent contradictions. As I told you, for any mode of production to collapse, there has to be new form of needs. And in correspondence to new form of needs, new technology or new advancements would have to be there. Acha, what were the new needs? See, if you have read South Indian history, Pallav, Cholas, Pandavas, okay, you will realize that there was a point of time when Roman Empire was indebted to Pallavas. Okay, Cheras, Chera dynasty. Okay, Kerala Putram. Okay, now these are the people who were exporting, who were known as the exporter of black gold. What is that black gold? Can someone tell me? Pepper, हाँ, very nice, बहुत ही बढ़िया. Pepper was a black gold. That same pepper that we do not realize or we do not even like. Okay, some people even avoid pepper because you know pepper is something. Of course, you would like pepper in pizza, but generally you do not put pepper in anything. Okay, but it was a luxury item in those times. And Roman Empire, the only thing that could drain the wealth of Rome was one single black gold, that was pepper. Okay, anyhow, yes, so basically what I am telling you is that new needs developed. They got exposure to black gold. Okay, and silk, textile, all those things. Okay, spices, textile. And South Indian history is rich of these details. Spices, textile, all those things. Okay, Roman Empire had fallen victim to the debts which it had garnered because of the lot of imports that it was having of these precious items or silk or textile, all those things. Okay, so the needs ultimately led to increased needs ultimately led to fall of empire. Okay, but what is the process exactly? What was happening? Remember like this. Since I would be talking more about French Revolution so that we have one full-fledged background in our mind. So let me talk about French Revolution, what was happening in those times. And why Karl Marx called French Revolution as bourgeois revolution. Okay, not Karl Marx per se, but Marxist. Okay, what was happening in France? The needs of the nobility, okay, and the kings increased. With the population increase, the needs of these people also increased. Okay, lot of land was given to the serfs. Many landlords had started surveilling the lords. Okay, many things were now being produced out of land. The number of hours invested in the production of land also increased. Okay, with the growing needs. This is what is happening. With the growing needs, the repercussions have to be faced by the people who are working in the ground, and those were serfs. Okay, because whatever they were producing was going to meet the desires and needs of the nobilities or the kings or the upper classes. Okay, so what happened? Gradually, the towns started getting developed. Townships, we call it as townships. Okay, with the ever growing needs, technology changed. With the technological change, what happened? Production also increased. With the production increase, industries got established, factories got established, and to seek more production of more precious items, trade also started. Okay, international trade. Okay, so when international trade happens, to seek more and more needs, colonialism happened. बिकॉज इंडिया वॉज सोने की चिड़िया, तो सोना सारा वहां से लेके आओ, उधर वो वहां नहीं रहेगा, इधर आएगा, हमारे किंग के पास आएगा, इसलिए क्वीन के पास आज तक कोहिनूर है, उनको शौक थे, नीड्स हैं उनकी, ठीक है। तो these people, because of their ever increasing need, ultimately the ever increasing need led to increase in technological advancements, and that is how from small city states they developed into towns, and then factories got established, international trade came, colonialism came. Okay, and this whole chain actually led to rise of industries. Okay, with the rise of industries, what happened? The third estate people, the people in the third estate, if you remember, were bourgeoisie, the middle class. And who were the owner of these industries which were established to meet the ever increasing needs in the name of mass production? These bourgeoisie had become the owners of these factories, and that is how merchant class came into existence. Otherwise, we had only landlords, and that's how came merchants, and these merchants got in conflict with landlords. These merchants got in conflict with landlords and the nobilities. And that is how Marx would say it is a bourgeois revolution, because third estate, we read like this, third estate overthrowing first estate, but it is actually bourgeois replacing monarchs and nobility. Okay, bourgeois replacing monarchs and nobilities. ठीक है? So what does it show? Class struggle. And when merchants came, they were the owners of factories, and these merchants became bourgeoisie. And not just a middle class now. Now the whole wealth was in their hands. Why? Because maximum production was happening in factories. The more you produce, the more you earn, the more you become millionaire. And new forms of inequalities came into existence. Instead of serfs, now we had working class, and most of these serfs only were working for the bourgeoisie. The same serfs who at one point of time were working for the landlords were now working for the bourgeoisie. इनका फेट तो वही रहा. Okay, class struggle तो हुआ, उनका फेट वही रहा. The old serf had now become new working class, the proletariat. Okay, this is what is happening. This is how you read history when you have put on the glass of Marxism. Okay. Now, capitalism. Well, now what is happening to capitalism is something that I will explain to you later on in the next class, because that is very interesting. In fact, the most interesting aspect of capitalism is capitalism itself, okay, which is something which I'll explain you in next class. But let me tell you the meaning of these words. Okay, socialism, pure communism, capitalism. Capitalism का simple meaning क्या होता है? Capitalism simply means an economic system, of course. Economic system, economy is the base, infrastructure, okay. An economic system, or more so when all these are engines only, economic engines, okay. Capitalism is an economic system which has organized itself around, which has organized itself to meet certain needs and to extract profit out of it. Simply like, just think like this. Main motive is profit. It is the profit which is running this motor. Without profit, this motor will collapse. Okay. Without profit, this motor will collapse. Acha, what is socialism? And in capitalism, remember, we have industries, industrial class, the bourgeoisie, and people working for the industrial class, the proletariats. Okay. Although in real world, we do not have these two binary opposites as simple as that. Okay, there are many complexities, but let us talk on behalf of Karl Marx for the time being. Socialism. In socialism, what is happening? Socialism is also a mode of production which has organized itself to meet the needs. But in socialism, the factories will not be owned by one industrialist class or two or three or private enterprises. The factories will be owned by state. State, what today we call as PSUs. These are the factories owned by state. ONGC, BHEL, SAIL, GAIL, Navratna, Maharatna. ये सब क्या है? Public sector undertaking. State being the owner of factories. Steel factory, lignite factory. Okay, these are different factories owned by state. And some of the most important factories where state even do not even allow private enterprises. Okay, now that is also changing. If you are reading anything in newspaper, you will realize most of the things which were very sacred and were not supposed to be invested in by the private players are now also being sold out to the private players. Okay, against which many people are rising and saying that BJP is right-wing capitalist. Okay, this is why they say like this. Okay, and since they believe, that state should be the guardian of the weaker sections, and if state enterprises are being sold to the private players, and if in the most important, I would say, enterprises, if you allow FDI, FII in those most important enterprises, then it is a threat to our sovereignty or security, something like this. Okay, I'll go into those details also later on. So socialism is simply nothing but state ownership of resources. Okay, state ownership of resources or of the industries. Okay, industries that are made to have production of those resources or process those resources or to distribute those resources. Okay. Marx believed capitalism will also fail, and from the ashes of capitalism, socialism will come. How capitalism will fail is something that I'll deal next class, because long topic. Socialism will come. In socialism, the workers who were oppressed in capitalism we have workers also. Workers are oppressed in capitalism. So much of exploitation. These are the workers who will head the state in socialism. And socialism will establish dictatorship of the proletariats. Dictatorship of the proletariats. Proletariats, who are the exploited class in the capitalism, they will now be heading or having a charge of socialism. They will form a state. And what will happen when they form the state? What will happen when they form the state? All those inequalities that were there in capitalism will wither away. Acha, how all those inequalities will wither away? Because all those resources will be distributed equally amongst everyone by the state. Who is the in charge of state? Working class, which is oppressed in capitalism. This working class is going to distribute the goods and services equally amongst all of us. No would be richer, no would be poorer. Okay, and once this is done, once resources are equally distributed and produced with the help of cooperatives, regional rural banks, village cooperatives, okay, cooperative societies, once all these things are done, then comes communism, because the duty of state is over. Now state shall wither away. Communism would be stateless, classless, and production will be from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. This is what the happy picture of communism is. Now what is communism, वो सब तो चलो आगे की बात है, but is everything clear to you right now? Okay, so what is the conclusion? Conclusion is conclusion is conclusion simply is, I cannot write here now, I don't know why. Socialism is intermediary stage between capitalism and pure communism. Socialism is just a stage, not the end in itself. After socialism will come communism. Communism will be stateless. Socialism is having state controlled by working class from the capitalism. Okay, pure communism will be state. This is what the mode of production, the history of society has been so far, the history of class struggle. Okay, this is what Karl Marx is saying. Okay, and this is nothing but, when you read history like this, is this not materialist interpretation of history? Everything from economy, needs arising, then classes coming, then conflict is happening, and then evolution happening. This is materialist. And what was Hegel telling us? Ideas होते हैं, monarchy, democracy, and all world spirit, some world historical figure will come, he will do something. अरे ऐसे थोड़ा ना history बदलती है. History ऐसे नहीं बदलती. Karl Marx is going into the details to tell us how these ideas actually are developing by the classes to justify their claim over limited resources, or to justify inequality in that mode of production. That's it. So if you have any doubt, tomorrow we have off. Day after tomorrow we have test. Test is from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. Okay. So if you have any doubt, you can ask me. पेपर पैटर्न, आदर्श गुप्ता, शुभांगी बताता हूँ, क्या सॉरी शुभम बताता हूँ मैं. Sir, can we say in French Revolution inherent contradiction refers to conflict between nobility and merchants? यही तो बोला मैंने, मर्चेंट्स और नोबिलिटीज के बीच में ही तो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हुआ. तुम ये सोचो ना, पहला कॉन्फ्लिक्ट किसका था? लैंडलॉर्ड्स और सर्व्स का. ओके, और यही लैंडलॉर्ड्स जो थे, इनके साथ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में कौन आए? मर्चेंट्स. जब नीड्स बढ़ती गई, मर्चेंट्स वर नाउ द ओनर्स ऑफ फैक्ट्रीज. So class struggle again happened, but this time between merchants and landlords. Okay, the two powerful classes struggling with each other. Okay, two powerful classes struggling with each other, and that's how aristocracy was replaced by industrial capital society. Shubham, paper pattern. Karunesh, test time 12 to 6 p.m. You will have test from 12 to 6 p.m. In the sense, test will be of 1.5 hour. Okay, test duration is 1.5 hour. Okay, gradually we will see whether we should be making it 3 hour 2 hour according to your results also, okay, because initially we want to see how you perform in half of the time, more so when you are writing from home, sitting at home. You do not really get the feel of, you know, writing answer in one go in 3 hours. So that is why for the first time we are keeping it 1.5 hour a test, and you can write the test anytime between 12 to 6, whether you decide to write after lunch 3 to 4:30, 4:30 to 6, anything, that is your convenience, but 12 to 6. Rajshri, sir, you said increase in need that leads to technological advancement, then production relation, and then mode of production, then how internal economic contradiction leads to all those as per diagram. Array, why needs? When needs are developing and you are not able to fulfill your needs, all those people are oppressed. And they are oppressed, why? Because they have been oppressed to fulfill your needs. Serfs were oppressed to fulfill the needs of landlords. Landlords were oppressed to fulfill the needs of kings. Okay, these are contradiction. With increase in needs and with limited resources, inequalities will increase. These are showing inherent contradictions, and these inherent contradictions will automatically act as the motor of history. Okay. Relations of production in socialism. Relations of production in socialism is between state and working class. State and workers. State headed by workers. Okay. And the next class is working class. Okay. State and workers. This is what the relations of production would be in socialism. State as one class, second would be all workers. Okay. Shivam Garg, meaning of consciousness according to Marx. Consciousness is nothing, it is the being which determines the consciousness. This is what Karl Marx says. Being determines the matter. From matter comes the ideas. And therefore consciousness is, some people would argue, reading Marx, they would say it is false consciousness. True consciousness will come. All those things are those which we'll go later on. Okay. Right now we just need to understand those are consciousness. Whether they are true consciousness, false consciousness, how do we measure something as true or false? These are some details that we'll get to know. Okay. Adarsh Gupta, thanks sir. Rohini Ganguly. Sir, among these working class in socialism want these three laws function? Want these three laws function? The problem is when Marx talks about socialism, as I told you, till 4 stages what was happening? Motor was going on. History was interpreted. But after the 4 stages, Marx has become prophet. And when you speak like a prophet, you do not speak with logic. Okay. And this is also one of the criticism to Marx. Whatever he has said till capitalism, he is not repeating the same in socialism and communism. अलग ही अब कहानी सुना रहा है. जो प्रॉफिट बन गया है. नूतन, संडे को ओनली टेस्ट, नो क्लास ना, को ना, बिल्कुल नहीं, कोई क्लास नहीं. सैटरडे को भी क्लास नहीं, संडे को भी क्लास नहीं. राजश्री, why merchant and nobility struggled? Reason. Why? See, why would two people struggle? Because of struggle for what? Struggle for power. There is no reason between struggle for power, struggle for resources, because with the ownership of resources you gain power. Okay, who holds the resources? This is what struggle is all about. Why BJP and Congress are in struggle? Reason, power. Why Communist Party of India and BJP is in struggle? Power. सबको पावर चाहिए. मर्चेंट्स लैंडलॉर्ड्स का क्या रीजन होगा? वही पावर. रिया जैन, फोर्सेस ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. फोर्सेस ऑफ प्रोडक्शन कहां पे रिया जैन? फोर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन मैंने अभी बोला तो था रिया जैन. फोर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन नकली लोग बोलते हैं, जो नकली मार्क्सिस्ट होते हैं. ओके, असली मार्क्सिस्ट क्या बोलेंगे? मीन्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. ठीक है. Acha, remember, you will find force of production in some yes, you may find this term in IGNU also. Okay, but just because it is written in IGNU does not mean कि वो sacred हो गया है. You just have to understand, to us, means of production and relations of production is important. Force of production is nothing but interpretation. Meaning एक ही है. Term you can use these terms interchangeably, but the meanings are same only. करुणेश मौर्य, कैन वी हैव अनदर मीन्स ऑफ अच्छा, एमओपी का मतलब देखो, एमओपी का मतलब क्या लिखा है तुमने, मीन्स या मोड? जब मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन लिखोगे कैपिटल में लिखा करो एमओपी, जब मीन्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन लिखना है स्मॉल में लिखा करो. अब मुझे नहीं पता तुमने क्या लिखा है. राजश्री, थैंक यू सर. आतिफ रहमान, सर हाउ डज लॉ ऑफ डायलेक्टिक, थर्ड लॉ, डिफाइन द ओरिजिन एंड एवोल्यूशन ऑफ पेट्रियार्की इन फैमिली? अभी कहाँ पहुंच गए ये बताओ. पढ़ाया मैंने. हैव आई रेड फैमिली, पेट्रियार्की, दीज आर द यूनिट्स. तो यूनिट्स हैं, यूनिट्स. देयर इज वन मैन, Engels talks about origin of family in private property. And I'll teach you marriage family, then I'll discuss the origin of patriarchy family. Okay. And this is also historical sociology. ये historical sociology ही तो है. When you are talking about origin of patriarchy, when you are talking about origin of private property, when you are talking about origin of class inequality, this is historical sociology. लिख सकते हो कि नहीं वहां पर हिस्ट्री वर्सेस सोशियोलॉजी में? And would you believe that Marxism would have been alive if there was no industrial revolution? Marxism would not have been possible if there was no industrial revolution. Marxism was a response to industrial revolution, and therefore sociology is rootless without history, but then history is fruitless without sociology. Because when you start reading industrial revolution from the lens, or when you start reading French Revolution from the lens of Marx, you get to have a different flavor which is absent in other textbooks. Atif Rahman, sir, how does laws of dialectics define? ये तो हो गया. Sohini Ganguly, okay sir, thank you. Shubhangi, fetishism. Fetishism I have not explained to you right now, but when Marx talks about fetishism, he is talking about the fetishism of commodities. For example, okay, when you see people with iPhone, okay, ऐसे ब्लू कलर का ऐसे बीच में ऐसे लोगो होएगा, ठीक है, जिसको लोग बोलते हैं कॉन्स्पिकुअस कंजम्पशन, शो ऑफ, सिंबॉलिक गुड्स, ये सारे जितनी भी चीजें हैं. Somehow you know that iPhone is not so different from OnePlus, but we have fetish. We have developed fetish for Apple products. And this is the same fetish. Fetishism is actually name of religion. When you are in awe or in reverence of something that seems very magical to you. So Apple seems very magical to you. वो अपना हेडफोन निकालेगा ना 60,000 का, वो भी खरीद लोगे. कुछ तो बात होगी इसके अंदर. This is commodity fetishism basically. When you are not able to realize that the things, just a second, क्या हुआ ये? हाँ, when you are not able to realize that the things do not have any value per se, but still we are not able to realize that the value of those goods are nothing. Okay, and we fall in love with those goods. That is commodity fetishism. But उसके आगे हम आगे कभी चलेंगे, अभी तो बात ही नहीं करना चाहता मैं उसके बारे में. Okay. Pratibha. Sir, are needs also form of consciousness? No. Needs so needs. It is needs, our needs. Our needs are leading to the rise of certain technological advancement which are going to fulfill our needs. Today you can say our needs are designed. Our needs are no longer natural. You know this, whatever you need today is not natural. It is socially constructed need. Through television, they will tell you if you do not have this then you are गरीब. ओके, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल हीरो होंडा की एडवर्टीजमेंट आएगी, जैसे पहले जैसे अरे यही तो है देश की धड़कन. Nationalism, nation as a form of consciousness, is used to sell you the commodities. Needs are created. You do not need that Honda bike, but देश की धड़कन बोल दिया है तो अब लेना पड़ेगा. नहीं तो एंटी नेशनलिस्ट हो जाओगे. ओके सर, लास्ट नो पीस प्योर कैपिटलिज्म डेमोक्रेसी एब्सोल्यूट आइडिया नहीं कल थी से. राइट राइट, बिल्कुल राइट. प्योर कैपिटलिज्म मत बोलो, प्योर कम्युनिज्म है नूतन चौरसिया. करुणेश मौर्य, कैन वी हैव अनदर मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन आफ्टर. वो छोड़ो, लेट अस नॉट बिकम फिलोसोफर. ठीक है, बस इतना ही पढ़ते हैं जितना मार्क्स ने बोला, आगे की बातें छोड़ो. आदर्श गुप्ता, जो बीवी से करे प्यार, प्रेस्टीज से करे कैसे करे इनकार. बिल्कुल, बहुत सही, क्या बात है. दिस इज नोन एज कमोडिटी फेमिनिज्म. ओके, इसके ऊपर मैं बताऊंगा फिर कभी. ओके सर, चलो बाय.